Your Excellency, special guest of honor, President Muhammad Buhari, represented, because we know our president is in Washington on official engagement. Your Excellency, number 3, I call him, the President of the Senate, Chairman of the National Assembly, and Chairman of the Board of National Institute of Legal and Legislative Studies, Senator Ahmed Lawan, our guest speaker, and my brother, Right Honorable Femi Bajadbiamila, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Your Royal Highness the Emir of Kefi, who is representing the Sultan of Sokoto, my Lord Justice representing the Chief Judge of the FCT, Honorable Ministers, members of the National Assembly, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to this very important occasion. Your Excellencies, forgive me if I do not recognize all of you in the protocols, because just looking across, I saw the former Vice Chancellor of University of Abuja, my neighbor, who in his time recommended me for honorary doctorate, and I think I should recognize him. I also see our brother, Professor Atahiru Jega, the person that started true election reforms in Nigeria, and many other distinguished Nigerians that are here. I am greatly honored to be invited out of 36 state governors and many other former governors to chair this occasion. I don't know what qualifies me to be invited other than perhaps my friendship with both the Senate President and the Speaker of the House, who we have been engaging since 1999 and 2003 respectively. These two gentlemen are perhaps the most experienced legislators in the Fourth Republic, and I congratulate them for their resilience. So I thank you for inviting me. It is a great honor. It is not an honor to me, but to all my colleagues that are governors to be invited to chair this occasion. The National Assembly, and indeed the legislature, is a very key and often the decapitated branch of government. Because whenever there is a military coup, every other arm of government is left intact to continue. But the National Assembly and the state assemblies are usually dissolved. So we have found over time, due to years of military rule, legislative tradition has not developed as much as executive and judicial tradition. And this is why this kind of lectures are very, very important to continue to build the institutional strength and capacity of the National Assembly, as well as the state houses of assembly. There is also a lot of confusion about the role of the legislature, because many of the constituents think that once you're in the legislature, you should get them contracts. They think that everyone in government awards contracts. They do not understand that the role of the legislature is to make laws, as well as to serve as a check on the executive and legislative and judicial excesses. So there is a need for us to have this kind of interactions from time to time to foster understanding of the role of the legislature, as well as how to make the legislature better. I therefore commend the 9th Assembly and the National Institute for this initiative. And for me personally, being here is also an opportunity to learn and remedy my personal defects, because the legislature is one branch of the government that I know I can never function in. The hard work needed to convince people to support even your motion is something some of us have no patience for. You know, the executive is very straightforward, it's very hierarchical, and once you are the governor, your word is almost law. In the legislature, everyone is equal, and there is no leadership or management more difficult than managing your equals. So I don't envy Mr. Speaker and the Senate President at all, because their job is perhaps the hardest job in this country. Managing equals is very, very difficult. Managing subordinates is easy. You can hire and fire. But managing equals is perhaps the most difficult. And I know I'm quite incapable of it. So any opportunity I have to interact with the legislature, I take it. I know that many of our colleagues, governors, retire to the Senate. I can assure you I will never retire to the legislature because I don't think I will function there. So I really, really have great respect for those that are in the legislature and manage to make it function. So it's really a great pleasure to be here. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I believe that the role and the relationship between the three branches of government should be governed by collaboration, coordination, and interdependence. Because none can function effectively in the public interest without the understanding and support of the others. In Kaduna State, we have a novel way of ensuring this. We constituted an informal state leadership council consisting of 4 representatives of each arm of government. I represent the executive arm along with the deputy governor, the chief of staff, and secretary to the government. The legislature is represented by the speaker, the deputy speaker, the majority leader, and the clerk of the State House of Assembly, while the judiciary is represented by the chief judge, the Grand Qadi of the Sharia Court of Appeal, and the President of the Customary of Appeal, with the Chief Registrar of the High Court present. It's an informal meeting. We don't have minutes. We just share documents, brief each other on executive challenges, legislative challenges, and judicial challenges, and agree on key policy directions for the state. Before we introduce any policy or any bill on the executive side, we usually discuss the outlines in the Leadership Council, which meeting we try to hold monthly. We don't always succeed because of our schedules, but we do meet from time to time. I think this explains why in the last 90 months, the Kaduna State House of Assembly has been able to pass as many as 200 pieces of legislation, because we usually agree in advance the outline, so by the time the bill comes, there is very little disagreement, no surprises at all. We brief each other. The legislature knows what we are thinking, we know what the legislature is thinking, and the judiciary also knows what the other 2 arms of government is thinking. This is something that I will recommend to every state government, because in the last 90 months in Kaduna State, it has worked for us. The key role of the legislature is to check the excesses of the executive and the judiciary. And that is why the first chapter of the Constitution, after the fundamental principles and the other introductory parts, deals with the legislature. The legislature is actually the ultimately most powerful arm of government. It is supposed to check excesses of the executive as well as the judiciary. And that is why it is the legislature only that can remove the Chief Justice or the Chief Judge of a state. Indeed, in other federal jurisdictions, even the appointment of ordinary judges has to be confirmed by the legislature. And this is something that I recommend actually that we introduce as a constitutional amendment, so that all senior judges of Superior Court of Record, should be subject to confirmation by the State House of Assembly or the National Assembly, as the case may be. I want to end by commending the Ninth Assembly that improving that collaboration, coordination, and cooperation in the public interest works better for Nigerians than confrontation for personal and promotion of egotistical interest. This Ninth Assembly has passed the most important and seminal legislations in this Fourth Republic. I will mention just about 5. While I was DG of BPE, we began the draft of the Petroleum Industry Bill in 2002. It went through several governments until this Ninth Assembly finally enacted it, I believe, some 18 years later. Congratulations. Since 1990, we've been operating on one Companies and Allied Matters Act, when the world has moved on and metamorphosed and corporate practices have changed. It is the Ninth Assembly that enacted a new Company and Allied Matters Act to replace the one that we've been using since 1990. Again, our congratulations. This National Assembly also repealed the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act, passed again in 1990, I think, or 91, and replaced it with a modern legislation to regulate our banks and financial system as a whole. Again, congratulations. The Deep Offshore Decree that was enacted by the Abdulsalami administration in 1998 had become a problem that favored the multinationals to the detriment of Nigeria's personal corporate interest. I must commend this Ninth Assembly for having the courage, against all odds, of enacting a new Deep Offshore Act that protects the interest of our country. And again, we commend and congratulate you for that. Finally, this Ninth Assembly enacted the most far-reaching health insurance legislation in Nigeria's history that will afford every Nigerian health insurance and achieve universal health coverage. And congratulations for that. And finally, it is this assembly, under its watch, that the tradition of introducing finance bills to amend tax legislation and provide the fiscal basis for the budget was reintroduced. This we have not done since 1996. This Ninth Assembly, I think, deserves the commendation and the support of all Nigerians for its performance. This is quite apart from the brand new legislations like the student loans bill, the economic stimulus, and other wide-ranging constitutional alterations that this Assembly has passed, which is the most encompassing in this Fourth Republic, awaiting the action of the State Houses of Assembly. But that is not all. Like Oliver Twist, I think this Assembly in the last 6 months can still do a bit more. And I'll list a few areas, 7 areas indeed, that perhaps the National Assembly should look at as it rounds up its remarkable and very commendable 4 years. First is state and community policing. I think we are all clear now that the current policing system is broken and doesn't work for Nigeria. And Nigeria is the only federation in the world with one centralized police system. I think this National Assembly has the capacity to enact a state and community policing system that prevents the abuses of the past and takes into account the challenges of the present. Secondly, value-added tax has become a major source of survival of this country, because this year the NNPC has not brought a penny to the Federation account will be relying on taxes, particularly value-added tax. And the fact that the value-added tax is not on the exclusive list is a major source of concern for the fiscal health of the Federation. And I think that is something that this National Assembly can do something about in its last 6 months. There are issues about rebalancing of the Federation, like onshore mining and petroleum assets to be placed on concurrent list, the federalization of the judiciary, because Nigeria, again, is the only federation with a unitary judiciary, which does not work for everyone. And finally, for me, we've done this in Kaduna State, but it will be helpful if the National Assembly takes charge of this and makes it a national policy and legislation of making 12 years of education, free primary, secondary, technical and vocational education, to make the first 12 years, not just basic education, 9 years, free, compulsory, and to be a first-line charge on this budget of states and local governments. This country can never make progress without educating everyone. By 2050, Nigeria will be the third most populous country in the world, and we must educate everyone if that population is to be productive and advance the interests of the country. And finally, of course, reforming the local government system to make the local governments more autonomous of the states, but yet to make each local government flexible to meet the needs of the state. Because in a diverse country like Nigeria, one local government system does not fit all. We have our histories, we have our traditions. What can work in Kaduna, where the native authority system used to work very well in northern Nigeria, cannot work in Anambra State that has no such tradition. So it's something that requires some creative legislation, but I am quite confident that my two brothers here, the Senate President, I call him number 3, and my brother Speaker Baban Jamila, as we call him in Kaduna, are up to the task. So I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to address this August gathering and to be the chairman of this occasion. I will take my seat and allow our guest lecturer to do what he does best. But let me apologize in advance that I may not stay the whole period, because today I am hosting the presidential candidate of our party, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in Kaduna. We have a Northwest Zonal Rally flag off tomorrow, but he decided to come a day in advance because he likes Kaduna so much. So I have to leave to receive him at the airport at some point. I would like, with the greatest respect, if my brother number 3 will take over as chairman when I leave. I hope that will be okay for everyone. I thank you for your invitation, and God bless you all. God bless the National Assembly. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.